I never thought that my sister's wedding day, an event that should have been filled with happiness and love, would become the stage for an unforgettable shock, and a dark truth would be revealed amidst the fake smiles, empty wishes, and clinking glasses filled with lies. I was not invited to my own sister's wedding. Yes, you heard right. I, the one who grew up with her, shared every slice of bread, every tear of childhood, was left out of the most important day of her life, as if I were just an unnecessary blemish in the splendid picture she painted to impress the world. Why? They said it was a small, intimate ceremony, that the budget didn't allow for everyone to be invited. But when I scrolled through social media, saw hundreds of guests, saw people my sister once called not close, still there, I knew clearly I hadn't been forgotten. I had been left out on purpose. And at that moment, I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stayed quiet. But my heart was restless. In that silence, a storm was brewing. Not because I couldn't attend the wedding, but because I felt something was very wrong, some kind of lie that was being cleverly concealed like a veil covering the bride's face, beautiful, fragile, but obscure. I chose not to rush in with anger, but to wait, observe. And then the opportunity came, a chance to not only prove that I wasn't invisible, but also to expose a secret that their entire family had tried to hide in the darkness of the glittering lights. Welcome to Twisted Justice, where seemingly unjust and helpless stories end in the most just and breathtaking way. Here, we don't just tell stories, we reveal deep emotions and sometimes painful truths that are hidden behind a mask of politeness and false friendship. If you're looking for a place to listen to everyday but not ordinary stories, where the underdog turns the tables, where justice doesn't knock softly but smashes down the hypocritical gates, then you've come to the right place. Today's story isn't about an unsent wedding invitation. It isn't about eyes averted when you need a hug. It's about a masterful counterattack, brewing for months only to explode when you least expect it. You think the worst thing is not being invited? No. The worst thing is that they think you'll never dare to respond. But I did. Not with words, but with actions. Not with tears, but with the truth. And it was that truth, bitter, painful, but undeniable, that silenced everyone. Including the bride. Including the mother who had turned away when I asked why. And including the stepfather who, oh wait, that's the part of the twist you don't want to miss. Don't look away. Don't think this is a small family everyday story. No. This is an indictment. A verdict on those who think they can forever step on others to build their own image. And you know the best part? That extravagant wedding I was excluded from, I was still there. Not as a guest, but as the one who silenced the entire aisle when I spoke. You are watching Twisted Justice, where justice may be late, but it never forgets its way. Be prepared, because the twist in this story will make you look back at the seemingly sacred relationships in your life. Take a deep breath. Follow if you haven't already. Because today's justice doesn't knock gently, kicks in. Beneath the facade of a model family that outsiders often looked on with admiration, there was a maze of knots, repressions, and secrets that only those involved could understand. I was born the eldest daughter in a family of 3, my mother, me, and my younger sister, Sarah. My father left when I was 4 without saying goodbye, leaving nothing but a few old photographs and my mother's lingering doubts. We lived in a small rented apartment in the suburbs. Every day was a struggle to make ends meet, but I never complained. My mother, though harsh and strict, was the sole breadwinner, and I, as the eldest, learned early on to sacrifice what I wanted to give way to Sarah, my sister, who was 3 years younger. Since childhood, Sarah has been a particularly spoiled child. Not because my mother intentionally favored her, but because Sarah was different. She was cute, pretty, and always made people want to protect her. Meanwhile, I, with my ordinary appearance and quiet personality, was often labeled as the responsible child, the child that people expected to be reasonable, not demanding, not annoying, and not requiring much care. As I grew up, I gradually understood that my position in the family was not to be the most loved, but to be the one who had to shoulder the burden to keep everything from falling apart. I studied well, worked part-time early, and gave up all expenses so that Sarah could pursue her passion for art and live her dream. Everything seemed to be acceptable until my mother remarried. Mr. David, my stepfather, appeared when I was just 17 years old, a successful, calm man with social status and a demeanor that everyone respected. First, I hoped that his presence would bring stability to the family. But the truth is, when he came in, I was gradually pushed out of the common life that I had tried to maintain. Mr. David showed much more interest in Sarah than me. Expensive gifts, public compliments, obvious favors at every meal, at every family gathering, all seemed designed to make Sarah the princess, and me the invisible one. I wasn't jealous. I was just hurt. Whenever I tried to talk about my studies or share something, my mother and David's eyes would just glance at me and then return to Sarah. Gradually, I learned to be quiet. I put all my energy into studying and working. I became independent at 19, moved out, paid for my own university tuition and rent. No one asked me how I was doing, no one called, no one remembered my birthday except for a few short messages. Sarah was different. She stayed home, continued to be sheltered, and eventually studied fashion, which was her passion. I don't deny her talent. Sarah has always had an eye for style, and I even modeled for her first amateur collections. But there was always a quiet disconnect between us. I always stepped back, letting her step forward. But at some point you realize that if you step back too long, you disappear. A year ago, I heard about Sarah's engagement. I didn't hear it directly from her, but from a mutual friend who happened to see the post on social media. I called to congratulate her, and she responded coldly, as if I were a stranger. I thought, maybe she's busy. Maybe she's shy. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. But then time passed, no invitation, no further information. I vaguely understood that I wasn't on the guest list. My mother was silent. I took the initiative to ask, only to receive the answer. She wants to have a small wedding, only close friends and a few people close to her family. That sentence felt like a knife. Was I not close enough? I, the person who stayed up all night to look after her sick sister, the person who went hungry to save money to buy fabric for the clothes she tried on? What was I in their eyes? I didn't go to the wedding, but I knew it was at one of the city's grandest hotels, a place that had hosted celebrity parties. Photos on social media showed a lavish affair, complete with flowers, candles, designer gowns, and a guest list full of influencers. I felt like I'd been ripped from a movie where I'd starred, only to be replaced by a more perfect, more beautiful, more fitting actor. I told no one about the trauma. I continued my work. I was now a financial planner for an investment firm, earning a steady, even comfortable income. No one knew that my uninvited child was managing a portfolio worth tens of millions of dollars each quarter. I kept quiet because silence is power. But then, in a twist of fate, one day I received an email from a real estate investor who was looking to offload a chain of restaurants and event centers, including the hotel where my sister's wedding was held. You might think I jumped at the chance. But I didn't. I researched, negotiated, and thought for weeks before signing the contract. Not because I was wondering if I should get even, but because I wanted to make sure everything would be as neat, legal, and satisfying as possible. I didn't buy it to show off. I didn't buy it because I was angry. I bought it because I wanted to prove that people can take you out of a wedding, but they can't take you out of your worth. They can forget you, but you don't need them to survive. And sometimes, you're the one who holds the door to things they thought were locked. This story is not a play. It is real. And it is about to turn to a new chapter, one where I am no longer on the sidelines but writing the ending. And the twist will be one they will never forget. From the moment I found out that I wasn't on the guest list for my sister's wedding, a sense of emptiness and loss crept into my every thought and breath. Not because I was really looking forward to an invitation, but because I believed that, with everything I had done for Sarah, for my family, I at least deserved to be present on that important day. I had naively thought that blood relatives could not be broken to the point of being so cruelly eliminated. But then it was my mother's silence, Sarah's avoidance, and the invisibility that I had been given over the years that made me realize perhaps I had never truly been considered an indispensable part of their lives. I tried to stay calm. In the early days, I made excuses in my head. Maybe it was the budget, maybe the guest list, maybe some misunderstanding. But the more I scrolled through social media, the more I saw pictures of Sarah glowing in wedding photo shoots, pre-wedding parties with dozens of friends, colleagues, even distant relatives I'd never met, the more I felt like I was being deliberately erased. I remember clearly one evening just a few weeks before the wedding. I called my mother, hoping for an explanation. Call was short and full of silence. I asked bluntly, "Mom, am I really not invited?" There was a sigh on the other end, and then my mother replied wearily, "Sarah wants a private wedding." She said she doesn't want anyone to overshadow the happy atmosphere. That statement was like a bucket of cold water poured over me. Overshadow? Me? Since when was my presence considered a threat to someone else's happiness? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. All I knew was that my heart was squeezed, as if all the efforts and sacrifices I had made for this family had been erased. I didn't tell my friends or colleagues about this. I kept my usual professional, calm facade. But every evening, after closing my laptop and drawing the curtains, I sat quietly on my small sofa, staring into space and wondered, where did I go wrong? Was I not good enough? I remembered the times I skipped buying books to save money for Sarah to go to a design conference, the times I stayed home to look after my sick mother so Sarah could go out with her friends. I remembered the nights I napped on my desk because I had to work a double shift at a coffee shop the next day to make enough money to pay the rent. And them? Who remembers? Then one day, while I was working in the office, I saw Sarah's name pop up in an internal email. I worked for an investment advisory firm and was working on a restaurant acquisition project, including a luxury hotel where my sister's wedding was taking place. It seemed Sarah was working with one of the event partners. I paused my work and opened all the relevant files. And sure enough, the hotel was one of the assets I was negotiating to sell. That's when all the emotions I felt, anger, hurt, even a little sarcasm, exploded. I realized I was no longer the quiet sister behind the scenes. I had power. I had status. And I had opportunity. But before any thoughts of retaliation could form, I wanted to make sure I understood everything. I arrived at the hotel as a guest without revealing my identity. I observed for myself, walking around what had once been the dream of many couples, and now the lavish wedding venue of the very person who had once considered me redundant. Every glittering wall, every row of ornate chandeliers, every prepared reception table, all carried bitterness. I had no place there. But now I walked through it not to bless but to re-establish my worth. I stared at myself in the mirror for many nights. I wondered, if I acted, would it be petty revenge? But then I thought of the years I had been ignored, dismissed, deprived of any chance of being loved properly. I did not seek revenge for the sake of gratification. I wanted them to understand that I was no longer the girl they could forget. I had a voice, and that voice for the first time would be heard clearly. A few weeks later, when the acquisition was finalized, I was one of the largest shareholders in the hotel's holding company. And from that position, I was able to request a review of all the event contracts for the next 6 months, including Sarah's wedding. I asked to see the details, not to cancel but to understand, did they really believe I would never be high enough for them to look up to me? Meanwhile, I also discovered something that shocked me. Sarah's fiancé, Ethan, was a former client of mine, someone who had come to me for financial advice 3 years earlier. He had been turned away for personal misuse of funds, and for being involved in a money laundering scandal that my firm had helped investigate. I wasn't sure Sarah knew this. But I did. And if I spoke up, it would all fall apart. Question was, should I? I was at a crossroads. Stay silent and let things continue, or use the truth I knew to stop them all. Conflict was mounting. I was no longer a victim but an active one, and that was the real climax. I had power in my hands, power they never thought I would have. And now I had to choose, what would I use it for? During those days, I often had dreams. I saw myself standing in the middle of the wedding hall, everyone staring at me, Sarah stunned, my mother speechless. I didn't scream, I didn't blame, I just smiled and simply said, I just came to see the place that rejected me. That dream wouldn't let me go. came back every night, waking me up with a racing heart. 'Cause I knew this wasn't just about being excluded from a ceremony. This was about a lifetime of rejection, of being underestimated, of being looked down upon, and now I had the chance to prove it wrong. Climax doesn't always come from dramatic action. Sometimes it comes from a long silence before the storm begins. And now I'm at the beginning of that storm where the past, the present, and all the conflicts that have been simmering for years are about to explode into a fire that no one can put out. They thought I would stay on the sidelines forever. But this time I'm not just back. I'm back with the truth. And the truth is more powerful than any invitation. I remember the moment when everything seemed perfect. They had a fairy tale wedding with fresh flowers, crystal chandeliers, and a carefully crafted guest list. I was left off the list. That's right. I, the one who'd slept in the same room as her for 18 years, the one who'd covered up her bruises when Mom was mad, the one who'd stood in the middle of the screaming instead of letting her suffer, wasn't worthy of being there on her big day for some reason no one spoke of. The whole family seemed to be silent, as if they were hiding a secret I had no right to know. But when the truth came out, dramatic, stark, and irreversible, the entire wedding turned into a battlefield of silence and stares colder than a blizzard. I was going to let go, really. There were so many reasons to turn away: pride, pain, betrayal. But the question still gnawed at my mind every night. Why? Why did the sister I once loved choose to completely eliminate me? And why didn't anyone in the family speak up for me, even a word? It was that silence that made me decide to act. Not because I wanted to destroy my sister's happiness, but because I needed to know. What were they hiding from me? I started with the small details. Scrolling through the wedding photos tagged by friends on social media, I saw a familiar face. The man standing next to my sister in the engagement photo was not the boyfriend she had dated 2 years earlier. That was true, but it wasn't true either. 'Cause the face was too familiar to me. I zoomed in, then compared it to old photos. Pointed chin, the absent-minded eyes, the crooked smile. There was no mistaking it. It was my ex-husband. And then, like a storm, the truth began to fall apart. I had been in a failed marriage, lasting only 14 months before I realized that the man I loved had changed. No longer my soulmate, no longer my gentle husband. He became controlling, cold, and seemed to be always busy with unexpected business trips. I left him not because I was weak, but because I chose myself. I never suspected that during those days of absence, he was quietly building another relationship with my own sister. I felt my insides turn inside out. Memories flooded back. My sister asking about my husband's business trip, even though I'd never told anyone. The time she accidentally wore the exact same dress I'd ordered online for our anniversary party. Everything began to fit together in a chilling way. And then, unable to bear it any longer, I decided to confront her. I didn't knock on her door, I didn't send her a text message. I chose to quietly attend the wedding, not as a guest, but as someone who knew the truth. I rented a chic black dress, expensive heels, and walked in like a cold whirlwind through the glittering ceremony. I didn't scream or make a scene. I just walked straight to the microphone when the MC invited everyone to raise their glasses to the bride and groom. I raised my glass, and instead of a toast, I said, "I'm glad you were finally able to go public with your 3-year relationship with my ex-husband. I just regret not being invited to the family dinner that year, when he started calling you his true soulmate." The room fell silent. My sister was petrified. Her face was as white as paper, her lips trembling, unable to say a word. My mother, sitting at the middle table, was so shocked that she dropped her glass of wine. The man standing next to my sister, the man who had sworn to love me forever, just stared at me as if he didn't realize he had been unmasked. No one said anything for a few seconds. And then, a wave of whispers erupted across the hall. Friends whispered, relatives shook their heads, and a few even pulled out their phones and started filming. It was no longer a secret. That was the moment my sister's wedding turned from a fairy tale dream to a real nightmare. That was when my whole family began to realize that there were truths that could not be hidden under the white dresses and sparkling pictures. I left the party in silence. But I knew behind that door everything had changed forever. I remember feeling like an unwanted object in a stranger's living room. It was the day I learned that my sister, the person I grew up with, sharing snacks and hiding mistakes from our parents, had gotten married without telling me. No invitation. No phone call. No text. No explanation. Everyone in the family was there except me. That betrayal didn't feel like a stab. It felt like a long, slow, bleeding wound. But what made me unable to let go was not being excluded from the wedding, but because I later discovered a secret that she should never have let me know. A secret hidden behind gentle words and sweet smiles in front of the whole family. A truth that was enough to upset everything I had ever thought about the relationship between me and my sister, and the honor she had built up for so long. I didn't act immediately. I watched quietly. I spent weeks piecing together the pieces that she and her family had tried to hide. Every old text, every hastily deleted photo, every conversation interrupted when I walked into a room, all of it led to a conclusion that I knew as I reached it. This would be the perfect revenge. My sister, who had built a glamorous wall of a happy life, had actually married my ex-boyfriend. That's right. The handsome, successful fiancé who appeared beside her in every glamorous Instagram photo was my ex-boyfriend. Someone I was almost engaged to. And all this happened right after I rejected his proposal because I found out he was cheating on me with my sister. The bitterness is not only losing a lover but losing to your own blood. But they made me redundant. And that wedding, the event to bury the past, erase all stains with the complicit silence of the whole family. No one told me because everyone chose to stand on the side of peace. No one expected me to know. No one thought I would dare to respond. But they forgot one thing. I was no longer the weak younger sister, living under the shadow of my older sister. I started planning. No fuss. No petty hatred. I planned step by step, strategy by strategy, as if I were playing a game of chess. I knew that her husband held an important position in the real estate company in which I also had shares through indirect investment. I approached the shareholders, gradually increasing the number of shares by quietly buying back those who were unhappy with the current management. I did not reveal my identity. I left my legal name to appear at the last minute as a surprise attack. And then, when the time was right, I showed up at the shareholders' meeting, as the company's second-largest shareholder. They didn't see it coming. Her husband, now the CFO, blew up when he saw me walk in as the person who would have the right to vote to fire him if I wanted to. And I did. I presented evidence of some financial irregularities that he had deliberately ignored. Of course, I had my own lawyers, an independent auditor, and the press outside the building, just waiting for the right moment to leak the information. In less than a week, he was out of office, under investigation. His career was in freefall. Company had to announce a board reshuffle, and the person nominated to take the new CEO position was me. What about my sister? After the truth was revealed, the media began to dig up old photos and Instagram posts from when the two were still secretly in love. It was not difficult to piece together the timeline. And when netizens learned that my sister had married her younger sister's husband behind her back, her image as an elegant bride was reduced to ashes. Her social media accounts were attacked fiercely, and brands that had collaborated with her immediately withdrew their promotional contracts. Within a few days, she was cancelled by the very community she had tried to please. I didn't stop there. I held a big charity event at the same restaurant where they had held their wedding, the most luxurious place in town. But this time, I was the host. And when I got up to speak, I told the story of a girl who was excluded from her sister's wedding, only to discover that the husband was her boyfriend. The room fell silent. I didn't say anyone's name, but everyone knew who I was talking about. There were silent glances, regretful shakes of the head, and then applause. Not for revenge, but for rebirth from pain. I stood in the spotlight, wearing the dress that she had once said was too cheap to wear to a wedding, the shoes that they had once laughed at, and now we're being praised by many for being simple yet powerful. I didn't get revenge with anger. I got revenge with success, with truth, and by showing the world that I was no longer anyone's shadow. Now she has to live with public criticism while I run the company where her husband used to be the director. Not only did I restore my honor, I also made them understand that the price of betrayal is never cheap. It is not revenge, but justice. Cold, exact, and satisfying justice. After all the ups and downs, the hurt, and the bitter smiles from those who laughed at me for my cheap shoes at the wedding, I stand here in the light of the success that I created with my own hands. The story is not simply about revenge, but also about the journey of finding myself, the journey from pain to strength, from contempt to strong self-esteem. Maybe someone will look at it and think it is just a story of revenge, but for me it is a testament to perseverance, courage, and the desire to constantly assert myself. When people look down on you, when they laugh at things you may consider small, they really don't know that they are the ones who give you the motivation to continue on your own path. Cheap shoes are not the end of my value, but just a beginning of a journey full of difficulties and challenges. I have proven that it is not money or material things that determine people, but how they stand up and face all obstacles. This story teaches me a lot about life and people. First, it is a lesson about perseverance. Throughout the journey, I have experienced times when I thought I could not go on, when everything seemed to be against me, when their laughter still echoed in my mind. But I did not let those things destroy me. I know that, as long as I persevere and make constant efforts, success will come, even though it may be late but surely. And when that success comes, it is not only a reward for myself but also a wordless response to those who once looked down on me. Next is the lesson of self-respect. When you are looked down upon, the feeling of inferiority can easily drag you down to the bottom. But I have learned that self-respect is not something you are born with, but something you build every day through decisions to stand up, through actions to protect your own values. Cheap shoes may be small material things, but self-respect and self-belief are what make me who I really am. And that is what makes me strong in the face of scorn and criticism. The third lesson I want to share is the power of forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or accepting the hurt, but is a way to free yourself from the burden of negative emotions. I used to hold grudges, used to think of revenge to satisfy my anger, but then I realized that only forgiveness can help me find true peace. Forgiving those who have hurt me is the way I move forward on my path without being entangled by the past. The story is also a testament to the power of confidence and courage. I did not hesitate to stand up, not only to change my life but also to show everyone that no one has the right to underestimate you just because of your starting point or the material things you have. That confidence helped me open the door to new opportunities, helped me build a solid and promising future. And most of all, it helped me understand that I am valuable and no one can take that away from me. My story also tells another important lesson about patience and preparation. Success does not come by accident, but is the result of constant effort, patience in every step, no matter how small. When I look back, I realize that every difficulty, every hurtful word is a valuable lesson, an indispensable piece for me to become stronger and wiser. Thanks to that, when the opportunity came, I was ready to grasp it and turn it into a turning point that changed my life. I also want to emphasize the importance of maintaining one's identity and personal values in any situation. There were many times when I was tempted to abandon my principles, to lose my integrity just to get revenge or respond to criticism. But I chose a different path, the path of kindness, wisdom, and patience. And that is what helped me not only win over others, but also win over myself, becoming the best version of myself. My story is also a powerful reminder that true success is not just about money or material things, but also about peace of mind, satisfaction with yourself, and creating positive value for life and those around you. I used to think that if I could get even, everything would be fine, but in fact what is more important is that I have found peace and gratitude for the lessons of life. And finally, I want to send my sincere encouragement to all those who are going through similar difficulties. If you feel undervalued, hurt, or abandoned, remember that you are not alone. Every challenge, every stumble is an opportunity for you to grow, for you to find the potential strength within yourself. Don't let anyone or any situation make you forget your own value. Stand up, persevere, and confidently move forward. Success is not a destination but a journey you go through, and in that journey you are your own hero. My story is a living testament to change, to the ability to overcome all difficulties to create a life worthy of what you desire. And if you are watching this video, I hope that the story will inspire you, help you find the motivation to constantly strive and rise in life. Let pain become strength, let criticism become motivation, and let yourself be the one to decide your future. If you find this story meaningful, please share it with your loved ones so that together we can spread the message of perseverance, courage, and self-worth. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, and leave a comment so that I know what you think, and together we can build a strong community where everyone is respected and inspired to be better every day. Life is never easy, but you can choose to make it meaningful. Continue writing your story with a strong heart and unwavering faith. If you have taken the time to watch this story to the end, then you have certainly felt the power of the experiences and valuable lessons that I want to share. The story is not just a personal story, but also a testament to the perseverance, courage, and value of each person when standing up to difficulties in life. And if you think that these things are worthy of being remembered to be spread, then I ask you to take a few seconds, press the like button, subscribe to the Twisted Justice channel, and turn on the notification bell right now. Clicking the like button is not just a simple action, but it is your way of telling me that this story is meaningful, that what I share touched your heart. When you click like, you not only support me but also help the video reach more people who may need to hear a story like this to find motivation and faith. You never know, just one like from you can help change the life of someone who is struggling, someone who is feeling lonely or lost. Subscribing is equally important. When you subscribe, you become part of the Twisted Justice community, a community of people who are constantly seeking justice, empowerment, and positive change. Each member of this community has the power to spread the message, to share stories of perseverance and self-conquest. And when you subscribe, you are also the one who gives me the power to continue telling inspiring stories, journeys of overcoming adversity, lives that do not resign themselves to fate but always stand up and take control of themselves. Turning on the notification bell is the way to not miss any new videos from Twisted Justice. On the channel, I always try to bring true, deep, and emotional stories that not only entertain you but also inspire you to change, to take action, and to believe that you can overcome any challenge. If you do not turn on the bell, you may miss the next stories, the valuable lessons that I have for you. The notification bell will be your companion, reminding you every time there is a new story, a new message, an opportunity for you to be inspired and empowered once again on your path. Beyond liking, subscribing, and ringing the bell, I want to invite you to join the conversation in the comments section below. Share your thoughts, similar experiences, or even questions you'd like me to answer in future videos. Twisted Justice community is not just a place for me to tell my story, but a place where you and others can connect, support, and grow together. Each of your comments not only helps me learn more about you, but also helps other members of the community feel connected and encouraged. You can also share this video with your friends, family, or anyone you think needs to hear a story like this. Spreading the message not only helps expand the community, but can also change someone's life in a positive way. Just one small action from you, one click to share, is enough to bring hope and strength to someone out there who needs a motivation to stand up. As the channel grows, I always want to hear from you about topics that interest you, stories you want me to tell next, or experiences you want to share. Connection between storytellers and viewers is the endless source of energy for Twisted Justice to constantly grow, constantly develop, and become a place where we can all find empathy and strength. Remember, every time you interact with a video, you are not simply supporting a YouTube channel, but you are contributing to building a strong community where everyone can be the hero of their own story. Twisted Justice is not just a channel, but a small fire in each person's heart, igniting the will to overcome all difficulties and never give up. If you have ever felt weak, hurt, or abandoned, come to Twisted Justice, where you can find real stories, meaningful lessons, and motivation to stand up stronger. And if today's story has helped you, leave your mark by liking, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell. That will be your way of telling me that you want to continue this journey with me. And don't forget, you are not just a viewer, you are also a companion, a friend on my journey as well as on your own journey. Let's create a community that not only listens but also acts, a community that is always ready to stand together and overcome all the challenges of life. I know life isn't easy, and sometimes you just need a story, a word of encouragement, a little light to keep you going. Twisted Justice wants to be that light for you, and you are the one who can make that light shine brighter with your support. So if you feel this story deserves a lesson, a moment of reflection, then do those simple but meaningful things. Hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Let me know that I am not alone in my journey of telling these stories, and you are not alone in your journey of seeking justice and truth in life. I am so grateful to have you here, sharing stories and lessons with me. Every view, every like, every subscribe is a great motivation for me to continue creating more content, bringing value and inspiration to you as well as to everyone. And finally, don't forget, you can do anything if you believe in yourself and never give up. Let Twisted Justice be the place where you find faith, encouragement, and inspiration for the next steps of your life. I will see you in the next videos with more stories, more lessons, and more truths revealed. Thank you for staying until the end. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications now so you don't miss any of the emotional and meaningful journeys. See you at Twisted Justice, where every story is a journey and every journey is your own victory.